Welcome back. We are here for certified examiner training. We are covering the traffic signal light section in this video. On your score sheet, it's going to be in the way bottom lower left here, traffic signal lights. Let's get right to it. Automatic disqualifications, of course. Examples of that: if the applicant fails to stop at a red light, scored as a violation. And you will see people come up to right on red and say, "Oh, I got a free right on red." Well, it's not entirely free. Remember, you have to make a complete stop before turning right on red. Unless you have a green arrow, of course. Now, if the examiner intervenes verbally or physically to avoid an imminent collision, score it as a dangerous action. When you have an automatic disqualification, of course, all scoring stops. Direct the applicant back to the school in the most direct route. The vision penalty and the danger potential, 4 points here. If the applicant fails to look in both directions before starting, if the customer's vehicle is first in the lane. So you stopped at a red light, the light turns green, the customer starts moving, they need to scan the intersection as they start moving. If they don't, you circle this one here. This is for vision. Remember, if they're turning, you score it under left or right turn. This is only scored when you're driving straight through the intersection. Now, if you're the second car in the lane, you don't need to scan the intersection. Okay? If you're the second car passing through, you've got a human shield in front of you, right? That's their job to scan. You don't have to scan. It's only for the first car at the red light when it turns green. The yellow light one, a bit controversial just because there's always debate among examiners and auditors when it comes to when do we score this. Everyone thinks they have it right, but we all don't 100% agree on this. Yellow light is failing to anticipate a change of signal and approach, entering on a yellow when a stop could have been made safely. There's a lot of gray area in here. Remember that yellow lights are on average, yellow for about 4 seconds. Now that may be tweaked depending on the speed limit of the road, right? If it's slower, they can make it a little shorter. If the speed's 50 miles an hour plus, it might be just a little bit longer. So in this case, it's yellow. They probably could have stopped here. They just chose to roll through it. But again, they crossed the stop line before the light turned red. Yeah, I mean, it's technically legal, but they probably should have stopped. There's some danger potential there, so you would score that. Now, do not score the applicant as a violation if they enter on a green or yellow light and do not clear the intersection before the light turns red. Okay? So if you have applicants who go out in the intersection and wait to make a turn, and they just sit out there and stop and the light turns red when they're sitting out there, it's not scored as a violation. Okay? And if they didn't enter the intersection on a yellow, then you wouldn't score it. And you're like, oh, that's terrible. They're waiting in the intersection to turn left, even though the knowledge test says you must not enter the intersection and turn left. Yes, but it's not scored. Lastly, if the light is red prior to entering the intersection, that's a violation. If it's red, they break that stop line there, it's a violation. And they continue on, of course. Now, a score of attention is possible depending on what occurred, such as an obvious failure to react safely to pedestrians or road conditions and other cars. So if it seems like they should have paid attention to something but missed it entirely, we'll get to that in the general driving performance section, the very last section, last video of this series. Down on the next line, the 2-point errors under congestion potential. Stop line, the first one, SL. If the applicant fails to stop before crossing the designated stop line. Now remember, just like on stop signs, you got to get the wheel well of the car on top of the stop line, not the car's bumper. They land on that stop line with the wheels or past it, you're scoring SL. Now if there's a crosswalk, fails to stop before entering a marked crosswalk, then you're going to score CW. Remember, only when the wheel well has reached the crosswalk. And if there's a stop line and a crosswalk, score only the last applicable error, but not both. Now, if you remember from the stop signs video, if you watch that one, there's also one called INT right above it, the intersection. So if your car entered the intersection on a stop sign and you went over it, you would score the INT. You don't see that on traffic signal lights, because if you enter the intersection on a traffic signal light that's red, that's a violation and the test is ended. So there's not an intersection penalty on this one. ROR stands for right on red. So this is when the applicant fails to turn right on red after stopping when there's no prohibiting sign posted. So they show up, They make their stop, and they just sit there. Maybe they've got their signal on. They're just waiting for a green light. Now, how long do you wait before you score this? It's a small gray area that you're going to have to decide. Now, my personal opinion, I give them 7 seconds. I start the 7-second countdown when we start. If no cars pass by in 7 seconds, I'm going to score this. Because 7 seconds is enough time for you to pull out into traffic and get up to speed. Cars that are 4 or 5 seconds away, that's about as close as you want them to be. If they're 7 seconds away, that's plenty of time. So once we hit that line, I'm counting backwards: 7, 6, 5, 4, all the way down to 0. And if nobody passes by and they could have turned, that's when I'm going to score it. You'll determine what your method will be. Now, if their vision is obscured, or if the ability to make the turn safely is in question, give them the benefit of the doubt. Remember, they're a little nervous. They're on drive test. They don't want to screw up. And if it's a really difficult right turn on red, you might think about altering your route first, is what the DOL will tell you. And but don't give them that error if they're just like, it's just too difficult for the average person to make that safely. Finally, the last one here in traffic signal lights, 2-point penalty for hesitation. So this is when an applicant stops unnecessarily or fails to proceed when the traffic signal is green. Right? So if they come here and they made a stop, they're not really sure. Remember, this is only when they're going straight ahead. So if the applicant stops while turning, you got to score that under left and right turns, the STP error. They made an unnecessary stop while turning left or right. Okay? So when the traffic signal is green and they're just sitting there, and it's not because they're not paying attention. So if they're not paying attention, you would probably score that under general driving performance, directly to the right under the attention penalty. If they're just not sure what to do, you'll see it. You'll see they're kind of looking around. They're waiting for cross traffic, even though cross traffic has a red light, and they're not sure what to do. You see this pretty regularly. But this is only when they're going straight ahead. Okay. Right. And that is it for traffic signal lights. Next up is mechanical operation. We finished the whole left side of the score sheet. We're moving on to the right side. Mechanical operation is next. See you then.